think Al Pacino can start our discussion this evening. This production would have been impossible without his presence. And I think everyone would like to know how in the beginning he happened to decide to play King Richard III when he could be off in Italy or in Hollywood or one of those lovely sunny places, playing something by a swimming pool. Well, what you happen to do?
I'm allergic to the sun. Well, I've always wanted to do Shakespeare, and I thought it was optional whether I did Richard or Hamlet or Iago and Othello. And talking to David, we discussed it. And I thought, well, let's go ahead and do Richard.
Had you seen it, Tom? Had you ever seen it? You never saw anybody.
I did the first half hour of it at the Actors Studio 3 or 4 years ago.
Was that on your own? You worked it out yourself? One director?
The best way to do it.
What was your concept, David? When he said he would do it, you said Al Pacino and anything. And then from there, what about the idea of the concept of doing it with an actor who hadn't done Shakespeare?
Well, I think that the peculiar combination of values required by Richard III is very hard to come by, and that Al has. You have to have a sense of humor for the to get to the audience, and then you have to have a great motor for subjective response, and that's there has to be a demon that gets to the works his way towards the crowd. On the other hand, there has to be someone who's able to talk to the audience and enjoy himself hugely along the way. And I thought, where else can we find such a person? So,
what about the language, Al? Did you work on it at all? I mean, the fact that it is Shakespearean language, and you've always worked in prose and modern contemporary.
I've always loved language, you see. I've always wanted to do a language play. Even from realistic plays I did. And I had enough to say. It would get my muscle going. And I've always wanted to do that. I remember years ago just going over soliloquies of Hamlet and Macbeth and just doing it in my room anywhere I could. When I did scenes in acting class, I would usually pick scenes that were from Shakespeare. I just love the word. I've always loved it. And I've never had an opportunity to do it professionally. But language is something I always felt can be helpful. A lot of actors feel that language is something you go to. I feel language serves you. And it can be very helpful.
Are there passages in this that give you, that turn you on? What, for example?
The opening soliloquy, the various soliloquies in the play.
After Queen Anne, sure.
You'll find that anytime I have more than a paragraph to say, I get whether it's right or wrong, it just sort of moves in on me, because I find interesting how little we use words today, especially when I go to New York. I meet people. The mouths are very lazy. We don't talk. And this opportunity to talk and say these things, I think it's just great.
What happened the first time you auditioned for the Actors Studio?
First time I was rejected. And I was a young man and a teenager, and I went in there because the Actors Studio was the place we all aspired to, especially the one in New York. We didn't have a West Coast Actors Studio. It came over years because a lot of the actors in it had to come out here and make films.
Yeah.
But the studio sent me an encouraging note. They said, "Why don't you try again one day?"
Oh, so they said no, but don't give up.
Don't give up.
Right.
Don't give up the ship, kid. We'll see you again one day. And indeed, I came back and I did audition. And I got into my first audition. They passed me for some reason. As far as I was concerned, I didn't. And then they said, "Come back for another." And I've often, that's what they usually do. They say, and then sometimes you go to a third time, and that's called the final audition. And at that audition, they had the the brass of the Actors Studio, whether Lee Strasberg, Kazan, these kind of people were there, about half a dozen, and they would pass you, or they would make the decision as to whether you were going to be a member or not. And so I remember that last audition, I was about 25, I think, which is relatively young for the Actors Studio. And a friend of mine, a fellow named Nathan Joseph, never forget him, as Israeli guy, and he was this wonderful talent. You know, I was in a play with him, off Broadway, and he had a scene from a play called Look, We've Come Through, a Hugh Wheeler play. And another play I was doing was something from, I forget, one of those. Paul Muni was in that play at one point. I had an advantage because they were opposite characters. So when I did the audition, my audition was from the Angry play, where I play a communist rebel, and the other play was playing a sort of gay, kind of a young guy who's a hooker, a gay hooker, in a wonderful play called Look, We've Come Through. And I had it with Nathan. That was his audition, and my audition was with my friend Owen at the time. So they got to see me, and Nathan had made it up till the final auditions too. So that night I went in and did 2 scenes there, which is very rare that you have 2 finalists. And it wasn't planned, it just happened. And I was fortunate because they got to see me in 2 different kinds of characters, which I thought has always been a thing with actors. You know, you see, oh, well, he just does that, or he does that. So I was lucky enough to get them to see the 2 sides of me.
Do you find out whether you made it right then?
No, you don't. I remember being a young wise ass going down there after I finished, and there's the secretary was in the office downstairs, because you go through this, my thing that I show you in the film. I did this mini film about the Actors Studio, and you sit in this little place at the bottom of the stairs, and you walk up, like we just did here, and you walk all the way up, and then you're really scared down there, and in that room are the judges, and you go in, and they announce your name, and you go in and you do your scene at the renowned Actors Studio. And so I would go there, and when I left after the audition, I skipped down the stairs. I was pretending, of course. I was trying to, and I said, and she said, "How did it go?" I said to the secretary, "I'll be hearing from you tonight." I had such a, I don't know. Sometimes I wish I had some of that left. But it was interesting because
But you weren't faking it. You were confident. You felt you'd done well.
Well, I sort of doubled up on it. Yeah, I thought I did well. I thought I had the 2 scenes, and it gave me a little bit of. And then the next day, they tell you, they call you, and said you've been accepted. That was just. I mean, oh man, it was a lifesaver. Because actors, I mean, you rarely pass any auditions. What I always tell young actors, or if I'm speaking to them, I usually have, seminars where I talk to young actors. I say, please, whatever you do, don't expect to get the part ever. It's just out of it's out of the question. But try to do the audition with the audience, because they are your audience, because actors don't have audiences. You can do it on a park bench and some people are laying around, you start acting for them, which you need an audience. You need a way to get it out, and to use that as another lesson of how you I would go to an audition. I would say to the people auditioning, the people who are auditioning me, I would say, if you don't mind, I like your script. It's very good, but can I've prepared a little something. And immediately you're finished, they look at you like, who is he? And then you go in there and you do your thing. And so anyway, I was accepted, and it made me feel for the first time in my life, and I had been acting a good deal of my young life. In school, I was an actor. I started early. I really felt that I had become an actor. I was sanctioned. I got the seal. Hey, yes, I graduated. I'm a college grad, or I'm an actor. I'm really an actor. I've never gotten a dime for it, but I'm still a professional actor somehow.
Did it mean something to your folks when you got in?
Well, I didn't have folks then. I had lost my father. My father never had a father, but my grandmother was alive, and my grandmother and grandfather raised me. So she was alive, and I don't think she quite understood the impact of it. But I did tell her in any event. I told a couple of friends, and especially my close friend Charlie Lawton at the time, not the Charles Lawton, but Charlie Lawton, who was my dear friend and mentor. And I told him that I got in, and he was really happy for it. It was just because I had studied with him. He was an acting teacher, and I had never studied with Lee Strasberg or anybody at the studio. And then they took me in, and I was too sort of shy to do a scene for the first 6 months, so I would just sit in the class.
So that guy who skipped down the stairs and told the receptionist that you're going to be calling me tonight, that guy was too shy to do a scene?
He was acting. That guy was acting. But it was a way of, just dealing with the kind of thing where, the actor is always having to audition or go through a thing. And it was my way of, how could you say it? It was my way of being on top of it. You start to feel kind of, but I did come off there. I joked around a lot. That was a joke to me. But I felt I had done something.
So when you're here in this theater, at the Actors Studio West, what is this, what kind of memories does this conjure up for you?
Well, this is the West. I didn't work much here. I come here when I can. I usually worked out of New York and stuff. But like I said to you earlier, I was in this environment. The last time I was in this environment, it's a small theater, and there's you'll probably show it later. There's a little. It's almost like the old saying, having a plank and a passion. That's what you need, a plank and a passion, and that's a plank. And if you have a passion, you go up there and do Shakespeare. But I remember in the off Broadway houses that I used to work in. I was in a play,
and those were small theaters like this one.
Small theaters just like this one, and there were the seats right in front of us, with us. And I remember lighting up a cigarette. No, I was looking for a light. I had an ashtray, but I didn't have a light. And some woman in the audience just reached in and lit my cigarette for me. I didn't have a cigarette as the character, and then she lit it as the audience. So it was interplayed.
So you said in that film, you said something that you just referred to here. You said the best thing an actor can do is a role in a place, in a theater, in front of an audience.
Yeah, I think when you're a young actor and you're starting out, to me, it's about having a partner you do a scene with, and you do it together, you rehearse it, and then you do it in front of an audience. And if you do it enough, you start to learn a little bit. I mean, sometimes there's instructors there, help you, guide you a little bit. But it is the action. Action is what counts.
And you're not talking about learning the lines. That's part of it.
Yeah, that's part of it.
So what is it? What is the thing that you learn?
You learn, like anything else, like you say, how to get to Carnegie Hall, practice. You get to Carnegie Hall, you can't just walk in and just do it. if you're a first violinist, you have to have a lot of practice. So the same thing with the actor. You have to have there's one thing to have the desire, which is the most important thing, to feel the energy and the desire to do this thing, the appetite to do it. Appetite's very important because as you get to be an older actor, you start to lose the appetite because you get dreary and all the other things that happen. The first scene I did at the Actors Studio was I did 2 monologues. I was very shy, so it took me, as I say, 6 months to get up there and do something. But from years of practice, I had a soliloquy from Hamlet, which was a play I just constantly read, and the other was from The Iceman Cometh, Eugene O'Neill's Iceman Cometh. And I did both of them. And Lee Strasberg was the moderator. So it was packed, and he hadn't known me. I remember the one thing I will never forget is he looked at the card, and he saw on the card a guy named Al Pacino. Nobody ever called me Al Pacino because Pacino is a silent CH, and nobody knows that unless you know the language. You say Pacini. And school, when I went to school, they'd always be saying Pacuni, Pacani.
Yeah, I would have said Pacino.
Pacino, yeah.
Right.
No. Pacino, and he pronounced it right. So I said, he's got my heart. So I did the both of them. And then he said a particularly great Actors Studio thing. He looked at me in the audience. He said, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do Hamlet as you were doing Hickey. And I want you to do Hickey as Hamlet. I just went right into it. I heard it, And it was an amazing thing what he said because it was so interesting. That exercise right away, how everything changed. And you get a perspective, and that's sort of what acting is. You find that out usually through work and engagements with it. And, yeah.
So in that area, Ellen Burstyn said, when I asked her how, I might have said method acting, but I might have said the Actors Studio.
Yes.
How did the Actors Studio change the movie business, the theater? And she said, everything. It changed everything from before and after.
Well, I can tell you, the Actors Studio is and the kind of acting there is you're always trying to find a way to somehow. Strasberg did it. Stanislavski, the great teacher, did it. He learned from the great actors at the time, the great stage actors at the time. And what it is for me is to be able to if you find you go through various transformations as an artist, as an actor. You keep doing it, and you learn about yourself. The more roles you do, the more you learn about yourself, and so what works for you, what you feel comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with. See, this is why Lee Strasberg would say, I'm not that interested in what you do well. I'm interested in the roles you have difficult time with, because that's where technique is learned.
So there's a story gets repeated on Turner Classic Movies, gets repeated by a lot of actors, and certainly in New York too, that there was the theater before
Yes.
Your Friend Marlon Brando and The Streetcar Named Desire, and
Yes.
there were movies before Your Friend Marlon Brando and The Streetcar Named Desire, and
That's right.
his performance changed everything.
Well, it did. It changed everything. Again, he was, I would say he was the closest that I've ever seen to a genius, acting genius, that I've seen. I've seen great performances. And I remember I was a kid. Now, I had no idea. So I was doing a play in junior high school. And I remember coming after the play, and this guy came over to me, an adult, and he said, "Hey, kid." So I turned to him, he says, "You're going to be the next Marlon Brando." And I said, who's Marlon Brando? I remember that. Never forgot it. But what happens if you see the combination of things with actors sometimes who get the role, and the role and the and the play. If you take Streetcar, you take Kazan as the director, you take Tennessee Williams as the writer, you put them all together, and when you take one scene in Streetcar, just take it out of context, when he's playing cards, and Brando's playing cards, and you could tell he's not winning. They were a bunch of guys that poker, and the two women, Blanche and Marlon's wife, are in the Kim Hunter and Vivian Lee are in the other room, dancing and making noise because it's a small place in Louisiana, and he's getting upset. He's got a hat, and he's got his T-shirt on, and you could feel him, the sweat and everything else, and then you see him. He's annoyed with them, and he keeps calling. Then he seems to get a relatively good hand. You could feel him. He's got a good hand. And he has that look on his face when he puts it down. And he puts the hand down. And the other guy he's playing just goes, oh, and throws down another hand. And you see it happen to Marlon. You see it go right through him. Now, this is a performance he did on the stage for many months. So he had acquired all that stuff inside him. He understood the language and everything that goes with the emotions. It was inside him. That he didn't have to act, is the point. So when he did it, and you could see him get mad at the guy, because you see that. It's different when it's on Broadway and you're at distance. But when you're there, you see the eyes go, you see the transition from knowing that he was going to win to knowing that he lost, and then the way he was aggravated with them in the other room, who are just saying all these things to him. They're playing music and making a racket, and that's probably why he lost the game or whatever, how he computes it. He gets up and he just gets up and grabs the radio that the music is on. He throws it, I think, through the window. He gets up and turns over the table. They grab him, they put him in the shower, and then it winds up at the end of it, him going up there to the, looking up to the balcony saying, Stella, remember that scene?
Yeah,
well, if you isolate it, just watch it, you will not see an actor. You will see a tornado. You are in touch with nature when you see it. Now that takes the concept of the writer, certainly takes Elia Kazan's great direction, how he orchestrates it, and then Marlon's gifts. Also the fact that Marlon was in the zone because he had done it on stage and practiced it many and many a night. And then he adjusted to cinema. That was the big adjustment.
So when you get asked then, because look, man, one of the things here is that non-actors who love the movies, who love the theater, they don't quite understand what happens here or what you do. And they have these maybe preconceived notions about what method acting is.
Yeah.
So tell them what it is.
Everybody has a method. We have a method right now when we talk. A method has to do with, I think I am one who has to do with experience. I can only give you examples. I can't think of what it is, because when I approach acting, I approach the role, and I approach the writer of the role and how I can consume it and bring it to my unconscious. I think, but at the bottom line, the actor studio purports toward the personal. So things that happen are personal. I only can say I did a play called American Buffalo, and I did it for a long time, on and off for 4 years. At one point in the play, I was doing the play, and it was okay. It was received all right, and I was playing it. And it was a play that I loved. It was one of David Mamet's greatest plays. And so I became involved with it. And by doing it, I did it in Connecticut. I came back. I did it off Broadway for the longest time. We even went to Broadway. Finally, I did it in London. And then I came back here and did it in Washington. I did it in Boston. See what I mean? The traveling and stuff. Now, by the time I did it in Boston, I had done it on and off for 4 years. Now I'm on the stage in the play. I'm playing it with my partners, and we're all together and we're working. And I realized after about 5 minutes, I hadn't moved. I had not moved. I was just there.
And in previous performances,
Exactly. Part of even some of the evaluations or criticisms of it was that, wow, look at him. He moves like a, they were positive, but it was about he moves like a panther, and there he is like that. And all that, I didn't have to do it anymore. Why? I got tired? No. It was because I had done it so much. When you go to a game, whether it's football, baseball, you go to a baseball game, guy hits the ball, the guy catches it, he throws it first. It's so fast, but it's done with economy. They never move extra, if you notice, because they played it their whole lives. So there's the economy comes with practice.
So, but okay, I'll go to let's go to a couple of big movies then. The Godfather, when you come in, you play that role, were you in the studio yet?
I was in the studio, yeah.
So you're in the actor's studio, but you've done 2 other movies, right? I think.
Actually, one. The other one, me and Natalie, I had a bit part in.
So only one
real movie.
Only one real movie before The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing like American Buffalo. You don't have 3,000 performances to fall back on to know to be still. So how does the actor's studio help you in a movie like The Godfather when you got no experience?
Well, all I can tell you is what you're doing Shakespeare. You do, like Peter Brook told me, the great director Peter Brook, who directed all kinds of great things, had his own theater company. He told me in my film, Looking for Richard, he says, what you can do in the theater with Shakespeare. See, in the theater, usually that's why the pacing was and everything was, you're projecting because you have to reach the balcony. So it changes your technique. It changes the way you approach things. You have to use your voice to a certain degree. But in the movies, you're working here. You're working in this frame. And so what you're doing in the frame is basically you're adjusting you're conforming to the frame. And that's instinctive. Every time I go on stage, I want to hear things for the first time. And I never do. I always am thinking of the line the person's going to say. And then once in a while, it changes because I have other things to attach myself to. You understand? You're thinking about other things, so the words come in.
So how does how did the actor's studio help you in those moments?
Well, it helped me basically because I was allowed to listen to what the critiques were of people doing things. I was learning by seeing what mistakes I made, what mistakes, obvious things. But to me, I don't, there are exercises they do, there are ways of looking at a scene. I just learn from doing. You see, you have to understand something about the actor's studio. Everybody in it, there's not one way of doing it. There's no rules in a sense, because rules are going to change all the time. You change how you feel that day, what play you're doing. It's a different play than the other play you did. So there's a new way of look. It's a new painting. So you are told sometimes at the studio. You're told things that you might not have. Like Lee Strasberg once told me, "Yeah, you're waking up. Are you waking up? You're just waking up." Was that waking up? I said, "Oh, you can't experiment as much as you can here." And all kinds. It's Ellen Burstyn says to you how she perceives the method, how she perceives the work in that class. I'm sure Harvey Keitel would tell you something different. Paul Newman would tell you something. I'm telling you something now. It's different. Everybody has their own approach to things, and they all can do it here.
Why is it important for an actor to free their unconscious?
Oh, I think a lot of things happen in the unconscious. unconscious. I played a role, if I may.
You may.
Yeah. I'm not with anybody else here, so I can talk all I want. You know what I mean? I played a role, and I played a salesman, and I was doing this role for a while, and I found myself in the middle of a scene dancing. I was just dancing to something, and I do it a couple of times during the play. Dancing. And I thought, what is that? After I finished the play, I'm walking and I'm thinking, oh man, my father was a dancer and he was a salesman. That's what I mean by unconscious.
So you didn't plan on it.
I didn't plan on it.
It happened.
Where did it come from? I don't know. It was there. I know it came from somewhere back there, you know. And it's all about keeping yourself, your instrument free.
When you say your instrument, what does that mean?
That means the whole gestalt, man. Everything.
The whole gestalt.
The brains, the body, the heart, the mind, everything. And that's what is the way. You know, you try to do what Michelangelo said when he said, you know, Lord, free me of myself that I may please you. You want to get freed of the ego and all the things that come with us and find a way to express the character you're playing or your perception of what the character is, because everybody does it differently, you know. I saw recently, after 25 years, I saw The Godfather 1.
I haven't seen it. Is it good?
It really worked. It really worked. But I saw it and I thought at the end of it, I saw this person emerge, right? And then I thought, oh man, I went and did another one. I did Godfather 2 after that. So I took that where I was and did a whole 3 hour, another 3-hour movie going through that. So, you know, you say to yourself, I said to myself, how did I do that? You know, I was younger, I was different. I was a different kind of person, of course. But to me, that was something that person had gone through, whether it was destiny or whatever it was. He had to change his trajectory in life to deal with his family problem, and that turned him into what he was at the end of the film and what he is to the Godfather 2. And when they made Godfather 3, I think now what I wish I had this thought. When it for me it was more Godfather 3, and I didn't do it. I didn't succeed in doing that, but I would have, if I could only have been me now, I would have said, this man is in stone. He's encased, and he really wants to get free of it. You know, so.
But you don't think you did that?
I don't think I did it because it was it was a bit complex in the sense that it was about redemption and redeeming it. But it was, I thought it would have been closer for me now if I was looking for a way to break out of that thing that I had, where I had come to as Michael, where he had come to.
So, as you've gotten more experienced, as you've gotten older, it's easier for you to take off the coat of the character you're playing.
Easier, yeah. I think sometimes I have to. Sometimes it's better if you're doing a dark scene, and sometimes it's better for you in the scene itself if you have a happy day, because that's in us. All those things are in us, all of us. We all have all these things in us. An actor has to access. That's why they used to call the actor an emotional athlete. We're an emotional athlete. So those emotions are in us. That's why actors can be sometimes, like I'm being now, a bit effusive and you try to get it out and talk fast, because we are the sort of the chroniclers of our time. We are expressing what people who don't do this sometimes want to express and feel. That's why they identify with actors when they're in roles.